The alarm rang through Frontier Watch just after dawn. Commander Jake was drinking his third cup of coffee when the sensors picked up the fleet. 37 ships, all bearing the markings of the Empire. They appeared from hyperspace like ghosts, their hulls gleaming in the light of New Portland's sun. "Sir, incoming transmission," Lieutenant Amy Phillips said from her station. Her fingers moved across the console, bringing up the display. "They want to talk." Set down his coffee and straightened his uniform. "Put them through." The screen flickered to life. An alien face appeared, covered in dark scales with eyes that glowed like embers. Admiral of the Empire looked at with what might have been contempt or might have been pity. "Human Commander," said, his voice translated by the computer. "I am Admiral, I speak for the Empire, you will listen." Nodded, "I'm listening." "Your species has 12 hours to surrender all military vessels and facilities in this sector. You will hand over control of your colonies to administration. You will disarm your weapons and accept our terms. This is not a negotiation. This is mercy." The bridge crew went silent, could feel their eyes on him, waiting for his response. He studied the alien admiral's face for a long moment. "Mercy," repeated slowly. "Yes, we have studied your military capabilities. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are crude. 17 star systems have fallen to the Empire in the past decade. Most surrendered without firing a single shot when they saw our power." Gestured, and holographic displays appeared showing massive battles, burning cities, shattered fleets. "Those who resisted were destroyed. We offer you the chance to avoid this fate." Leaned back in his chair, he looked at the displays, at the proud admiral, at the fleet waiting outside. Then he did something that made Lieutenant Phillips's eyes go wide. He laughed. It started as a chuckle, then grew into genuine laughter, shook his head, wiping his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said, still smiling. "That was rude of me. Thank you for the warning, Admiral. 12 hours should be enough time, though we might need 13 just to be safe." Scales seemed to darken. "You mock me." "Not at all, I'm just appreciating the courtesy. 12 hours is plenty of time to prepare the welcome party." Smile faded and his voice grew cold. "You've made your demand clear. Here's my response. Humanity declines your generous offer. We will not surrender. We will not disarm. And if you attack us, you will learn a very expensive lesson about what happens when you threaten our people." "You are a fool," said. "Your confidence is misplaced." "Maybe, I guess we'll find out in 12 hours. Out." The screen went dark. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Amy let out a breath she'd been holding. "Sir, did we just declare war on the Empire?" "They declared war on us," said. He pressed a button on his console. "This is Commander to all stations. Battle alert. This is not a drill. Contact Earth Command. Get me Admiral Kemp. And somebody find Captain Hammond and Captain. Tell them it's time." The bridge erupted into controlled chaos. Officers moved to their stations, fingers flying over controls. Red lights began flashing throughout the station, pulled up his tactical display and studied the fleet. They were holding position just outside weapon range, confident and waiting. "Earth Command responding," Amy said. "Admiral Kemp is online." A woman's face appeared on his personal screen. Admiral Kemp was in her 60s with hair and sharp eyes. "Jake, I saw the transmission." "Yes, ma'am. They gave us 12 hours to surrender." "What did you tell them?" "I laughed at them." Kemp's lips twitched into a smile. "Good. The fleet is already moving. We'll be there in 6 hours with everything we can spare. Can you hold until then?" "We'll make it work." "I know you will, Kemp out." Stood and walked to the main viewport. Below, New Portland spun peacefully, unaware of what was coming. 3 million people lived on that world. Farmers, teachers, children, families. They came here looking for a new start, a peaceful life away from the crowded inner systems. "Captain Hammond is responding," Amy said. "The Silent Blade is moving into position. Captain on the Defiant Spirit confirms her air wing is ready." "Good. What about the civilians?" "Price is coordinating the evacuation. Non-combatants are moving to the underground shelters. Major Foster says the defense batteries will be online in 2 hours." Nodded, he pressed the communication button. "This is Commander to all crew and civilian personnel. You've all heard the alert. They have demanded our surrender. They think we're weak. They think we'll roll over and accept their rule. They're wrong." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I won't lie to you. The next few hours are going to be hard. We're facing a fleet that's bigger than ours with technology they think is superior. But they've made one crucial mistake. They looked at humanity and saw merchants and diplomats. They saw a request for peace and assumed we'd forgotten how to make war. They're about to learn different. Could see his crew watching him, their faces tense but determined. I didn't join the fleet to fight. None of us did. We joined to protect, to explore, to build something worth having. But when someone threatens what we've built, when they threaten our people, our families, our homes, we remember something important. Humanity didn't climb to the top of Earth's food chain by being nice. We did it by being the most stubborn, most adaptable, most dangerous species our world ever produced. He smiled grimly. The wanted 12 hours, let's use it well, check your weapons, review your stations, help your neighbors, and remember what we're fighting for, out. Across the station, in the colony below, and on the ships taking position in the darkness, humanity began to prepare. Sergeant Danny Cole and his Marines loaded ammunition and checked their armor. Dr. Helen organized medical supplies and coordinated with civilian volunteers. A mechanic in the shipyards gathered his team and began running diagnostics on every weapons system they could reach. On the Silent Blade, Captain Greg Hammond studied star charts and asteroid fields, planning ambush points and fallback positions. Lieutenant loaded missile tubes and armed, calling out status reports to his captain. On the Defiant Spirit, Captain Lisa walked through the hangar bay where pilots performed final checks on their fighters. She stopped to talk to each one, calm and confident, reminding them of their training. Throughout the sector, the word spread. They had come. They had demanded surrender, and humanity had laughed in their faces. In his command chair, watched the countdown clock. 11 hours and 43 minutes until the ultimatum expired. He pulled up the tactical display again, studying the enemy fleet. They sat there, arrogant and certain, waiting for humanity to break. "Amy, what are they doing?" "Nothing, sir. They're just holding position, probably expecting us to start sending surrender terms any minute now." Smiled, "Let them wait. Are the defense satellites responding?" "Coming online now. The hidden ones are staying dark until you give the word." "Perfect, and the weapon platforms?" "Charged and ready. They have no idea they're there." "Good," settled back in his chair. "The storm's coming. Let's make sure we're ready when it breaks." Outside the viewport, stars glittered in the darkness. Somewhere out there, the fleet waited, confident in their superiority. But they didn't understand what they were facing. They saw humans as prey, as another species to be conquered and controlled. They were about to discover the truth. Humanity didn't surrender. Humanity fought back. And when you backed a species into a corner, when you threatened everything they loved, you didn't get submission. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the display showing the human station. His tactical officer, Commander L, approached with a data pad. "Admiral, the humans have not responded with surrender terms." "It has only been 3 hours," said. "They are probably arguing among themselves. Some will want to fight, others will see reason. Give them time to accept reality." L's scales rippled with uncertainty. "With respect, Admiral, their commander laughed at us. That was not the response of someone who plans to surrender." "It was the response of someone in denial," said dismissively. "I have seen it before. Some species need time to understand their situation. The human will realize his mistake." But L wasn't convinced. He returned to his station and pulled up the available data on humanity. The galactic database had surprisingly little information. Humans were traders, mostly. They had colonies on a few dozen worlds, nothing impressive. Their military encounters were rare and usually defensive in nature. Then he found something interesting. Earth's classification, Class 12. "Admiral," L called out, "the human is listed as a high level." Barely glanced at the information. "Irrelevant. They clearly adapted using technology. Look at them now. They live in climate-controlled stations and comfortable colonies. Whatever challenges they're presented, they have moved beyond them." L wanted to argue but held his tongue. The Admiral had made his decision. On New Portland's surface, Price worked in the Emergency Coordination Center. He was a civilian administrator, not a soldier, but everyone had a role to play when your world was threatened. His console displayed evacuation progress across the colony's major cities. "How are we doing?" Major Foster asked. She was military, responsible for the defense batteries being installed on the 3 moons orbiting New Portland. 92% of non-combatants are in shelters, reported. The remaining 8% are volunteers who insist on helping with defense preparations. Smiled, "Sounds about right. Humans are stubborn that way. In one of the shipyards, and his team swarmed over a defense satellite that had just been brought in for repairs. His grandson, barely 18, worked beside him, running diagnostics on the satellite's power core. "Grandpa, are we really going to fight them?" the young man asked. Didn't look up from his work. "Looks that way." "But they're stronger than us. Everyone says so." "Maybe," tightened a connection and ran a test. The satellite's weapons came online, green lights across the board. "But your great-grandfather taught me something during the border wars. Being stronger doesn't matter if the other guy is smarter. And humans were real good at fighting smart." On the Silent Blade, Captain Hammond studied the asteroid field that drifted between New Portland and the fleet. His ship was small, a destroyer with minimal armor but excellent engines. In a straight fight, any cruiser would tear him apart in minutes. Hammond said to his weapons officer, "Lieutenant, what's our missile load?" "Full tubes, Captain. Standard warheads and the special packages from Research Division." "Good, and the—" "Charged and ready, though I'm not sure how much good it'll do against their shields." Hammond smiled. "It'll do plenty if we use it right. How many decoy drones do we have?" 42. "Load 20 of them with sensor packages. I want to map their shield frequencies when this starts." Raised an eyebrow. "You're planning to hit them first?" "The Admiral said not to start the fight. She didn't say we couldn't finish it." Hammond brought up a tactical map. "We'll use the asteroids for cover, hit and run, make them chase us into terrain they can't navigate easily." On the Defiant Spirit, Captain Lisa walked through the hangar bay. Her pilots were performing pre-flight checks, their faces a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She stopped at each fighter, exchanging a few words with the pilot. "How are you feeling?" she asked a young pilot who was checking his weapon systems. "Ready, Captain. A little nervous, maybe." "Good, nervous keeps you sharp. Just remember your training. Don't try to be a hero. Stick with your wingman, follow your flight leader's orders, and come home safe. That's all I ask." Nodded, his confidence growing. "Yes, ma'am." Lisa continued her rounds, stopping at each pilot, building their confidence. By the time she finished, the hangar bay hummed with controlled energy. These were her people, and she would do everything in her power to bring them home. Back on Frontier Watch, received updates from across the sector. Dr. Helen entered the command center with a tablet full of medical supply reports. "Commander, the hospital is ready. We have beds for 500 casualties and enough supplies for a week of intensive care." "Let's hope we don't need them," said, "but thank you, Helen. I also have 60 civilians with medical training who volunteered to help. I've assigned them to triage stations throughout the facility." Felt a surge of pride. In the face of danger, people were stepping up, not running, not panicking, helping. Amy's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Sir, they are moving." Turned to the main display. The enemy fleet had begun to shift positions. "What are they doing?" "Looks like they're demonstrating their firepower. They're targeting the uninhabited moon, the small one in the outer orbit." "Put it on screen." The display showed the rocky moon, barely 300 kilometers across. A moment later, brilliant beams of plasma lanced out from the fleet. The moon's surface exploded, rock vaporizing under the intense heat. The barrage continued for 30 seconds, turning the moon's near side into a molten hellscape. "That's their warning shot," said quietly. "They want us to see what they can do." The fleet fell silent. A transmission came through. His face appeared on screen again. "Human Commander, you have seen our power. This is what awaits your station, your colony, your people if you continue this foolishness. Surrender now and avoid this fate." Stood, his bridge crew watched him, waiting. He could feel the weight of the moment. 3 million lives depended on what he said next. "Admiral, thank you for the demonstration. Very impressive." His voice was calm, almost conversational. "Now let me show you something." He nodded to Amy. She pressed a series of commands. Throughout the sector, systems that had been hidden came online. Defense satellites dropped their stealth fields. Weapon platforms that had been disguised as communication relays activated. And 3 ships that had been hiding in the shadow of New Portland's largest moon revealed themselves. The Defiant Spirit powered up its main engines, its fighter wings launching in perfect formation. 2 cruisers, the Hammer and the Shield, took up flanking positions. And from the asteroid field, Silent Blade emerged, its weapons hot and ready. "You wanted to see human firepower," said, Watch carefully. He gave the order. The defense satellites fired, not at the fleet but at another uninhabited moon. Rounds, moving at a significant fraction of light speed, slammed into the rocky surface. Where the plasma had melted rock, the human kinetic weapons punched straight through. The moon shuddered. Massive chunks broke away, tumbling through space. "We could have aimed at your fleet," said. "But we're not trying to start a war. We're showing you what happens if you force us into one. You have superior energy weapons. We have projectile weapons you can't easily defend against. You have numbers. We have home territory and prepared defenses. This doesn't have to happen." Space showed something hadn't seen before: uncertainty. "But if you insist," continued, his voice hard as steel, "if you attack our people, our homes, our families, then you will learn why humanity survived on a. You will learn why we climbed to the top of our planet's food chain. And you will learn that there is a vast difference between a species that wants peace and a species that is incapable of war." He leaned forward. "You have 9 hours left on your ultimatum. I suggest you use that time to reconsider, because if the shooting starts, we won't stop until either you leave or you're destroyed. Your choice, Admiral. Choose wisely. Out." The transmission ended. The bridge was silent for a moment. Then Amy let out a shaky laugh. "Sir, that was either brilliant or completely insane." "Maybe both," admitted. He turned to his crew. "All stations maintain battle readiness. I want updates every 15 minutes, and somebody get me a fresh pot of coffee. It's going to be a long day." On the flagship, El watched his admiral pace the bridge, had not spoken since the human transmission ended. Finally, the admiral stopped. "Analysis," demanded. "Are those kinetic weapons a real threat?" "Yes, Admiral," El said carefully. "Our shields are designed primarily for energy weapons. Solid projectiles at those velocities would penetrate with minimal resistance, and the humans have more ships than our scans initially detected." "How many more?" "At least 6 additional vessels, possibly more hiding in the asteroid field or behind the planet." Scales darkened with anger. Why was this not detected earlier? They were using advanced stealth technology, better than our intelligence suggested they possessed. The Admiral stood silent for a long moment. Then he turned to his communication officer. "Send a message to High Command. Inform them the situation is more complex than anticipated. Request additional forces." The next 3 hours passed in tense silence. Both fleets held their positions, neither willing to make the first move. On Frontier Watch, received constant updates from his tactical team. They were scanning them repeatedly, trying to find weaknesses in the human defenses. "They're probing our sensor network," Amy reported. "Testing response times, checking for gaps in coverage." "Let them look," said. "They won't find anything we haven't already accounted for." On the Silent Blade, Captain Hammond had positioned his ship deep in the asteroid field. His crew was running final checks on all systems. Looked up from his console with a grin. "Captain, those new sensor pods are performing perfectly. If the shooting starts, we'll be able to map their shield frequencies within the first minute." "Assuming we survive that first minute," Hammond replied, but he was smiling too. "How many asteroids did we rig with beacons?" 17. They'll read as ship signatures if anyone scans them casually." "Good. The more confused we keep them, the better our chances." Below on New Portland, Sergeant Danny Cole gathered his Marines in the briefing room. They were dug into defensive positions around the capital city's main shield generator. If they got through the fleet and attempted an orbital bombardment, these generators were the only thing standing between the civilians and certain death. "Listen up," Cole said, his voice carrying easily through the room. "Our job is simple. We protect this generator. If something gets past our ships and tries to take it out, we stop them. Ground assault, air attack, doesn't matter, nothing gets through." One of the younger Marines, a kid barely 20 named, raised his hand. "Sergeant, what if they send more troops than we can handle?" "Then we hold anyway," Cole said simply. "Because behind this generator are 3 million people who are counting on us. Our families, our friends, everyone we care about, so we don't get the luxury of quitting. We fight until either they leave or we can't fight anymore." Questions? Nobody spoke. Cole nodded. "Good, check your gear, rest if you can, and remember your training. We're Marines. This is what we do." On the flagship, received a response from High Command. Subcommander K, the youngest officer on the bridge, brought him the message. "Admiral, High Command acknowledges your request for reinforcements. However, they state that additional forces cannot arrive for 3 standard days. They expect you to complete the subjugation of the human colony with your current fleet. His jaw tightened. Acknowledged. He looked at his tactical display. The human forces had not moved, had not backed down. If anything, they seemed to be growing more prepared with each passing hour. El approached quietly. Admiral, I have been studying human military history. I think there is something you should see. Make it quick. El pulled up a series of historical records. Humans have been fighting wars on there for thousands of years. Before they reached space, they fought each other constantly. Their entire evolution was shaped by conflict and survival. They are persistence hunters, Admiral. On Earth, they would chase prey for days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. What is your point? My point is that the human commander was not bluffing. These are not merchants playing at being soldiers. They are soldiers who learn to trade. The difference is significant. Study the data. Images of human conflicts filled the screen. Ancient battles with primitive weapons, modern wars with devastating technology, a species that had refined warfare into an art form. They are still said, but his voice lacked its earlier certainty. Yes, but they are fighting on their home ground with prepared defenses, and they do not seem afraid. That concerns me. Before could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Admiral, the sensor officer called out. Multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace, human vessels, at least 6 of them. Smiled when Amy gave him the news. Right on schedule, Amy, patch me through to the new arrivals. Channel open. Admiral Kemp, welcome to the party. Kemp's face appeared on the screen. Behind her could see the bridge of the battleship Unbreakable. Jake, sorry we're late. Traffic was terrible. What's the situation? They are still here. They haven't attacked yet, but they haven't left either. I think they're waiting for orders. Well, let's not keep them waiting. Permission to take command of the tactical situation. Granted, she's all yours, Admiral. Kemp's expression hardened. All ships, this is Admiral Kemp. Assume attack formation. I want the Unbreakable and the cruisers in the center. Destroyers take flanking positions. Coordinate with local defense forces. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget. On the flagship, watched the human fleet organize itself. What had been a manageable situation had suddenly become much more complicated. The humans now had nearly equal numbers, and their ships were moving with practiced precision. The humans are hailing us, the communication officer reported. Put them through. A human woman appeared on screen, older than the station commander with eyes that held no mercy. I am Admiral Kemp of the Earth Defense Fleet. I'm going to make this simple. You are in human territory, threatening human citizens. You have 2 options. Leave now peacefully, or we will remove you by force. You have 1 hour to decide. You cannot threaten the Empire, said, but even he could hear the weakness in his words. I'm not threatening, I'm stating a fact. We didn't start this, Admiral, but we will finish it. Kemp leaned forward. I've read your species' history, your warriors, you value honor and strength, so understand this. There is no honor in bullying peaceful colonies. There is no strength in demanding surrender from those who cannot defend themselves. You came here expecting an easy victory. You were wrong. We still outnumber your forces. Maybe, but we have home advantage, prepared defenses, and weapons you're not equipped to counter. Plus, and this is important, we're fighting for our homes, for our families, for everything we've built here. What are you fighting for? Glory? Conquest? How many of your soldiers are willing to die for that? Had no response, Kemp continued. I'm giving you a chance to leave with honor intact. Take it. Because if the shooting starts, a lot of people on both sides are going to die. And for what? So your empire can add 1 more conquered world to its list. Is that worth it? The transmission ended. Stood silent on his bridge, feeling the eyes of his officers on him. He had come here expecting submission. Instead, he had found defiance backed by real capability. Admiral, El said softly, we should consider the human offer. That would be surrender. No, it would be a tactical withdrawal in the face of unexpected opposition. High Command will understand. We would be preserving our forces for a more strategic engagement. Kay spoke up. Admiral, our forces are not prepared for this type of combat. The humans have kinetic weapons that our shields cannot easily stop. They have defensive positions throughout the sector, and they are clearly willing to fight. Perhaps Commander L is right. Wanted to argue, every instinct screamed at him to attack to show these humans the price of defiance. But he was also a practical commander. He had seen what human weapons could do. He had seen their determination. "Send a message to the human admiral," said finally. "Request a negotiation, we will discuss terms." On the Unbreakable, Kemp received the message with satisfaction. "They want to talk, that's progress." His voice came through her console. "Do you think they'll actually leave?" "Hard to say, but I think we've made them think twice about attacking. That's half the battle." Kemp pulled up tactical displays. "Keep your people on alert. If this is a trick, I want to be ready." "Understood." For the next 30 minutes, both fleets held position while communications went back and forth. Proposed a ceasefire and withdrawal, with the understanding that the sector would remain in dispute. Kemp countered with a demand for full withdrawal and recognition of human territorial claims. Finally, an agreement was reached. They would withdraw from the immediate sector. No shots would be fired, but the issue of territorial control would be brought before the Galactic Council for arbitration. It wasn't perfect, but it avoided immediate bloodshed. Watched the fleet begin to turn away, their ships forming up for departure. He felt relief mixed with lingering tension. The crisis was over, for now. "Stand down from battle alert," he ordered. "Maintain yellow alert status until they're out of sensor range, and somebody thank every person who helped prepare our defenses. They saved a lot of lives today." Amy smiled. "Sir, they are opening a final channel. Admiral wants to speak to you." Nodded, put him through. His face appeared on screen. He looked tired, his scales dark with what might have been embarrassment or anger. "Human commander, you fought well. Without firing a shot, you forced a superior fleet to withdraw. That is worthy of respect." "Thank you, Admiral. For what it's worth, I'm glad we didn't have to fight. War is expensive, and the cost is usually paid by people who had no say in starting it." "A wise observation," hesitated, then continued. "I underestimated your species. I saw peaceful traders and assumed weakness. I will not make that mistake again." "Good, because next time we might not be so patient." His expression softened slightly. "But I hope there won't be a next time. There's no reason our species can't coexist peacefully. We just need mutual respect." "Perhaps," nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement if not quite respect. "Farewell, human commander. We will meet again, I think." "Probably. Safe travels, Admiral." The transmission ended. Watched the fleet accelerate away, their ships growing smaller on the display until they jumped to hyperspace. The bridge erupted in cheers. Amy was hugging the officer next to her. His voice came over the communication channel from the silent blade, whooping with joy. Even the normally reserved Captain Hammond could be heard laughing in the background. Allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. They had faced down a superior fleet and won without firing a shot. It was the best possible outcome. But as he looked at the stars, knew this was just the beginning. They would report back to their empire. Word would spread throughout the galaxy. Humanity had shown strength, had proven they could defend themselves. The question now was what came next. Would other species see them as worthy allies, or as threats to be eliminated? 2 days after the fleet departed, stood in his office reviewing reports. The crisis was over, but the work had only begun. Diplomatic messages flooded in from across the galaxy. Some species offered congratulations. Others demanded explanations. A few threatened sanctions for humanity's aggressive stance. "Commander," Amy said from the doorway, "you have a visitor, Admiral Kemp." Looked up, "Send her in." Kemp entered, looking more relaxed than she had during the confrontation. She settled into a chair across from his desk. "How are your people holding up?" she asked. "Relieved, mostly. A little disappointed we didn't get to test all those fancy weapons we prepared." Smiled. "Though I'm grateful we didn't have to." "Smart, wars are expensive, even when you win." Kemp pulled out a data pad. "I've been reading the intelligence reports. They are dealing with problems throughout their empire. Apparently, 3 of their conquered species saw what happened here and decided to rebel." Sat up, "Really?" "Really, the. All 3 species were conquered in the past 2 years. They saw humanity stand up to the and figured if we could do it, so could they. That's going to make the very unhappy." "Already has, was recalled to the capital. He's being questioned about his failure here. The Empire is scrambling to contain multiple uprisings while maintaining their borders. They're stretched thin." Considered this information. So by refusing to surrender, we might have started something bigger than just defending our own territory. Looks that way. The Galactic Council has called for an emergency session. They want humanity to attend. They want to know if we're planning to become a military power in the region. Are we? Kemp laughed. That's the question, isn't it? Earth Command is debating it right now. Some say we should stay peaceful, keep our heads down. Others say we've already shown our strength. We should use it to build alliances, protect others the way we protected ourselves. Before could respond, Amy's voice came through the intercom. Commander, we have an incoming ship. It's not in our registry. They're asking for permission to dock. And Kemp exchanged glances. Who are they? Asked. They identify themselves as a diplomatic vessel from the collective. They say they want to thank us. Kemp stood. This should be interesting. An hour later stood in the station's main receiving area. Beside him were Admiral Kemp, Captain Hammond, and Captain. The airlock opened, and 3 aliens entered. They were smaller than humans, standing about 5 feet tall. They had fur in shades of and silver, large eyes, and delicate features. The leader stepped forward and bowed. I am Ambassador Ra of the Collective. On behalf of my people, I thank you for your courage. Return the bow. Ambassador, welcome to Frontier Watch. I'm Commander Jake. This is Admiral Kemp. Ra's eyes moved between them. Your defiance of the Empire has inspired my people. For 2 years, we lived under their rule. They took our resources, our freedom, our dignity. We thought we had no choice but to accept their control. And now, Kemp asked, now we fight, because if humanity can stand against the Empire, so can we. We are not warriors like you. We are scholars, artists, builders, but we will not be slaves. Ra's voice grew stronger. I came here to ask if humanity would support our rebellion. We need allies. We need hope. Looked at Kemp. This was above his authority. The Admiral considered for a moment, then spoke carefully. Ambassador, Earth Command will need to discuss this formally, but I can tell you that humanity values freedom. We value the right of all species to determine their own future. If your people are fighting for their independence, you have our sympathy. Sympathy is not enough, Ra said bluntly. We need weapons, training, support that will not let us go easily. I understand. Give us time to consult with our government. In the meantime, you're welcome to stay here as our guest. Ra bowed again. Thank you. Time is something we have little of, but we will wait. After the delegation was escorted to guest quarters, Kemp and returned to his office. This complicates things, said. It does, but it also presents an opportunity. Kemp pulled up a star chart. The Empire has been expanding for decades. They've conquered or intimidated dozens of species. If those species start fighting back, if they coordinate their efforts, the Empire won't be able to contain them all. You're talking about organizing a resistance movement. I'm talking about supporting species who want their freedom. There's a difference. Studied the chart. The Empire was vast, but it was also overextended. If multiple conquered species rebelled simultaneously, the Empire would have to choose which territories to defend and which to abandon. Earth Command will never approve direct military intervention, said. We're not conquerors. We don't impose our will on others. No, but we can provide support to those fighting for their own freedom. Intelligence sharing, tactical advice, maybe some equipment. That's not conquest, that's alliance building. Over the next week, more visitors arrived. A delegation from a reptilian species that valued logic and order. They had been conquered through economic manipulation and wanted humanity's help in disrupting their supply lines. Then came species whose worlds had been strip-mined for resources. They sought refugee status and military training. Found himself at the center of something much larger than defending a single colony. Humanity was becoming a symbol of resistance, a beacon for species tired of oppression. Dr. Helen coordinated medical assistance for the refugees. Many arrived injured or ill from their rebellions. She worked tirelessly, aided by volunteers from the civilian population and some medical staff who shared their knowledge. Sergeant Cole found himself training and in basic combat tactics. It was strange, teaching peaceful species how to fight, but he saw the determination in their eyes and knew they would learn. The key is not to fight like us, Cole explained to a group of soldiers. Fight like you, use your advantages, you're smaller and faster than, use that. Don't stand and trade shots, hit and fade, make them chase you into terrain you know and they don't. One young, barely more than a child by their species standards, raised a hand. But we are not warriors. How can we defeat trained soldiers? Because you're fighting for your homes. They're fighting for someone else's glory. That makes all the difference. You don't need to be the strongest or the fastest. You just need to be more determined to win than they are to conquer. On the Silent Blade, Captain Hammond worked with naval officers, teaching them tactics for fighting larger vessels. Showed them how to use sensor jamming and decoys to confuse enemy targeting systems. You won't win by trading broadsides with cruisers, Hammond explained. So don't try. Think of space combat like a knife fight in a dark room. The one who knows where their opponent is and strikes first wins. Use asteroids for cover. Use planets for gravity assists. Make them come to you on your terms. The officers absorbed the information eagerly. They had ships but little experience using them in combat. They had destroyed their military academies early in the occupation. Captain worked with pilots. They had excellent reflexes and spatial awareness but lacked confidence after years of subjugation. Stop apologizing when you make mistakes, told them firmly. Mistakes are how you learn. Every pilot crashes in simulation before they get good. The difference between a dead pilot and a good one is learning from those mistakes. She watched as a pilot executed a perfect barrel roll, avoiding simulated enemy fire. The pilot's antennae vibrated with excitement. See, you can do this. Your people can do this. Now teach others what you've learned. Back on Earth, the government debated humanity's role in the growing conflict. Some argued for isolation, that humanity should focus on defending its own territory and not get involved in galactic politics. Others saw the opportunity to establish humanity as a major power, a protector of the weak. Admiral Kemp returned to Earth to present her recommendations to the Defense Council. She stood before a room full of politicians and military leaders, her uniform crisp and her bearing confident. We didn't ask for this role, she began. We wanted peace. We still want peace. But the galaxy has seen what happened at New Portland. We faced down an empire and won without firing a shot. That has consequences. What consequences? Asked a council member. Species across the empire are rebelling. They're looking to us for leadership, for support. If we turn them away, we send a message that humanity only cares about humanity, that we're no different from the just looking out for ourselves. And if we help them, then we build alliances. We establish humanity as a force for good in the galaxy. Not conquerors but protectors, not oppressors but liberators. We show that Earth's values, freedom, cooperation, justice aren't just words. They're principles worth fighting for. The debate continued for hours. Finally, a vote was taken. By a narrow margin, Earth Command authorized limited support for the rebellions, not troops or direct military intervention, but training, equipment, and intelligence sharing. When Kemp returned to New Portland with the news, felt both relief and concern. They were committed now. There was no going back. How did the council take it? He asked. They're nervous. This could escalate into something bigger, but they also recognize the opportunity. If we do this right, we could fundamentally change the power balance in this sector of space. 3 weeks after the fleet's departure, the joint operation began. Watched from Frontier Watch as the rebel forces moved into position. 3 small fleets, one from each species, converged on the supply depot designated station. Tactical display shows all forces in position, Amy reported. They are approaching from the asteroid belt. They are coming in from high orbit. They are holding back as reserve. Opened a communication channel. This is Commander to all rebel forces. Remember your training, stick to the plan, watch each other's backs, and good hunting. Ambassador Ra's voice came through from the flagship. Thank you, Commander, for everything. Whatever happens today, you gave us hope. You're doing the fighting, replied. The credit is yours. The attack began with the ships launching electronic warfare attacks. Sensors went blind, their communication systems jammed. While the defenders scrambled to compensate, the struck from the asteroid field. Small, fast ships darted in, launching missiles at the station's shield generators. The returned fire, but their targeting systems were still compromised. Most shots went wide. Watch the tactical display with held breath. The rebels were executing the plan perfectly, but one mistake could turn the operation into a disaster. Reinforcements detected, Amy announced. 2 destroyers inbound from the patrol route. They'll arrive in 12 minutes. curse it under his breath. The intelligence reports had said the patrol wouldn't return for another hour. Warn the rebel forces they need to speed up the operation. Ra acknowledged. They intensified their attack, focusing all firepower on one section of the station's shields. The barrier flickered, then failed. Immediately, they moved in, targeting the station's power core with precision weapons. Direct hit, Amy reported. Station is losing power. They are evacuating. Tell them to fall back. Those destroyers are getting close. But the rebels had already begun their retreat. They moved in good order, the three fleets covering each other as they. The reserve moved forward to screen the withdrawal, deterring pursuit. The destroyers arrived to find the station crippled and the rebel forces gone, allowed himself a smile. The first coordinated operation had succeeded. Over the next month, the pattern repeated. Rebel forces struck at targets throughout the occupied territories. Supply depots, communication relays, patrol stations. Nothing major, nothing that would provoke a massive response, but enough to disrupt operations and show that the Empire was vulnerable. They responded by pulling back from some of their more recent conquests, consolidating their forces around core territories. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. During this time, received an unexpected visitor. Admiral arrived at New Portland under a flag of truce. The Admiral is requesting a meeting, Amy said, clearly surprised. He says he comes alone as a private citizen. Raised an eyebrow. That's interesting. Clear him to dock, but keep security tight. An hour later, stood in his office. The alien looked different than during their last meeting. His scales were lighter, less aggressive. He seemed almost humble. Commander, thank you for seeing me. Admiral, or is it still Admiral? No, I was removed from command after our encounter. The Empire does not tolerate failure. His voice held no bitterness, just acceptance. I have been studying your species since our meeting, trying to understand how I misjudged you so completely. And what did you learn? That humanity is far more complex than I realized. You value peace, but you are capable of great violence when threatened. You extend mercy, but you do not tolerate injustice. You are contradictions, and that makes you unpredictable. Settled into a chair. The Empire is failing, Commander, not just militarily, but philosophically. We built our power on intimidation and conquest, but we never learned to build lasting relationships. When your species showed that we could be, others followed. Now we face rebellions across dozens of worlds. Why are you telling me this? Because I want to help end the conflict, not for humanity's sake, but for my own people's sake. The Empire is dying, and when it falls, it will take millions of lives with it, unless someone helps guide the transition to something better. Studied the former Admiral carefully. What exactly are you proposing? A peace conference? Representatives from the Empire, from humanity, and from the rebel species. We negotiate a settlement. The Empire withdraws from conquered territories. The rebels agree to a ceasefire. Humanity acts as mediator, ensuring both sides honor their commitments. That's ambitious. I'm not sure either side would agree. They will if the alternative is a war that destroys everyone. The Empire cannot win against coordinated resistance, but the rebels cannot conquer core worlds without massive casualties. A negotiated peace is the only path that doesn't end in catastrophe. Thought about it, a peace conference was risky, but continuing the current path was risky too. Eventually, someone would make a mistake and the conflict would escalate beyond control. I'll discuss it with Admiral Kemp and Earth Command, but I can't promise anything. I understand. Thank you for considering it. After left, contacted Kemp and explained the proposal. To his surprise, she was receptive. It's worth trying, she said. We've shown we can fight. Now we need to show we can make peace. That's how we prove humanity is different from the old empires. 2 months later, representatives gathered on a neutral station near the border between human and space. Stood beside Admiral Kemp, watching as delegates arrived. Ambassador Ra represented the sent their chief logician, a being named El. The Queen herself attended, a rare honor. The delegation was led by El, who had been promoted after his removal. The former admiral attended as an advisor, stripped of rank, but valued for his insights. The negotiations were difficult. They wanted to maintain some influence in former territories. The rebels wanted complete independence. Humanity pushed for a middle ground, free worlds, but with trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. found himself in long discussions with delegates from all sides. He listened to grievances from species who had suffered under occupation. He heard concerns about security and stability. He tried to find common ground where none seemed to exist. Dr. Helen provided an unexpected breakthrough. During a break in negotiations, she organized a cultural exchange. Scientists and artists from different species shared their work, their music, their stories. Slowly, delegates began to see each other not as enemies, but as people with legitimate concerns and hopes. Sergeant Cole and his Marines provided security, but they also interacted with guards from other species. They shared stories, compared techniques, found humor in common experiences. Small friendships formed. Captain Hammond and Captain worked with military officers from all sides, discussing how to prevent future conflicts. They established communication protocols, rules of engagement, ways to de-escalate tensions before they led to violence. After 6 weeks of negotiations, an agreement emerged. The Empire would withdraw from territories conquered in the past 5 years. Those worlds would become independent, with humanity guaranteeing their sovereignty. In exchange, the rebels would cease attacks on core territories, trade routes would be established, cultural exchanges would be encouraged. It wasn't perfect. Some rebels wanted more, some felt humiliated, but it was peace, and peace was better than war. The signing ceremony was held in the station's main hall, watched as leaders from across the sector put their names to the treaty. When it was done, when the agreement was official, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Afterward approached him. The former admiral extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting had taught him. "You did well, Commander. This peace is fragile, but it exists because of you and your people." Shook his hand. "We all did this together, that's the point." Perhaps, but humanity showed us something important. That strength is not just about weapons and intimidation. It is about principles and determination. When we demanded your surrender, you laughed. You laughed because you knew you would fight for what you believed in, no matter the cost. That courage inspired others. It changed everything. "We just did what we had to do." "No, you did what was right. There is a difference." Bowed, a sign of deep respect in culture. "I hope our species meet again under better circumstances." "So do I." As delegates departed, returning to their home worlds with news of peace, stood at a viewport watching ships come and go. Amy joined him, quiet for a moment. "It's strange," she said. "A few months ago we were preparing for war, now we're celebrating peace." "That's how it should be. War should never be our first choice. But when someone threatens everything we value, we have to be ready to fight." Glanced at her. "The key is knowing when to fight and when to find another way." "Do you think this peace will last?" "Honestly, I don't know, but we gave it a chance. That's more than most people thought possible." Returned to his duties, but life at Frontier Watch had changed. Ships from multiple species now docked regularly, bringing trade goods and travelers. The station became a hub of cultural exchange, a place where former enemies learned to coexist. They established an embassy on New Portland. They opened a research facility. Even some, those who saw the value in the new order, began visiting and working alongside humans and other species. 6 months after the treaty signing, received a message from Earth Command. He was being promoted to captain and given command of a new vessel, the Peacekeeper. Its mission would be to patrol the border regions, ensuring the treaty was honored and protecting trade routes. On his last day at Frontier Watch, walked through the station one final time. He saw humans working with engineers. He heard scientists debating with human researchers. He watched children playing with human kids in the station's park. This was what they had fought for. Not conquest or glory, but the simple right to live in peace, to build something good, to share the galaxy with others as equals. He thought about the day they arrived, demanding surrender. He remembered laughing, remembered the certainty that humanity would fight if necessary. They had been ready for war, prepared to defend everything they valued. But in the end, they had won something better than any military victory. They had shown that strength without wisdom was meaningless. That true power came not from dominating others, but from standing for principles worth defending. The demanded surrender. Humanity laughed and reloaded, ready for the storm. But when the storm passed, they didn't conquer. They built bridges, they made friends, they created something worth having. And that thought as he boarded the shuttle to his new command was the most human response of all. They had survived by being tough, by refusing to quit, by adapting and overcoming every challenge. But they had also survived by working together, by valuing cooperation over conflict, by choosing to build rather than destroy. The galaxy was changing. The old empires based on conquest and intimidation were fading. In their place, something new was emerging, alliances based on mutual respect, trade routes connecting peaceful worlds, species working together for common goals. Humanity hadn't set out to change the galaxy. They had just refused to surrender their values, their freedom, their right to choose their own path. But in standing firm, they had inspired others to do the same. And together, they had created something none of them could have achieved alone. As the shuttle accelerated away from Frontier Watch, looked back at the station one last time. It had been his home for 3 years. Now it was something more. A symbol of what was possible when people chose hope over fear, cooperation over conflict, peace over war. They had demanded surrender. They had expected fear and submission. Instead, they got humanity. And humanity, for all its flaws and contradictions, had one great strength. When pushed, when threatened, when backed into a corner, they didn't give up. They fought. But more importantly, they fought for something worth fighting for. And in the end, that made all the difference. And if we do it wrong, then we make enemies of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Kemp smiled grimly. No pressure. Laughed despite himself. None at all, so what's our first move? We coordinate with the rebellions. And are organizing a joint strike on a supply depot. If they succeed, it will cut off resources to 3 occupied systems. If they fail, they will crack down hard on all 3 species. Then we make sure they succeed. Only time would tell. For now, though, they had won, and that was enough. Yes, Admiral. Looked at the tactical display showing the human forces. They were outnumbered, yes. But they were positioned perfectly, using terrain and defensive installations to maximum advantage. And they had weapons his fleet was not equipped to easily counter. For the first time in his military career, Admiral felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. You got war,